Alright, section 1.1 talks about adding real numbers. So far at this point we've talked about counting numbers, which were numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, and the whole numbers, which were the same numbers but we added 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. Now that we're talking about real numbers, I'm going to go ahead and just draw the number line here. And we've already talked about 0 and 1 and 2 and 3, and we've talked about fractions as well. But now we're also going to be concerning ourselves with negative numbers. And all these numbers that I've added here on the number line, the negative 5, 4, negative 3, negative 2, all these numbers that I've added here, including these, is what we refer to as a set of integers. And so now we're going to talk about, how do I know if a number is positive or negative? So here we have a thermometer. It says the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. And it tells us here that the temperature is 20 degrees below zero. And I want you to notice what we have here. That's indicated by a negative 20. So negative 20 degrees means the same thing as the temperature is 20 degrees below zero. So let's look at the first 4 problems we have here and see if we can't figure these things out. So it says, determine the sign of each number described in the situation. A temperature of 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit below zero is recorded in Vostok, Antarctica. Okay, so for this one, since it's below zero, we would say that's going to be a negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The Himalayan peak K2 rises 29,064 feet above sea level. Since we're talking about above sea level, that's going to be a positive number. So we'll say positive 29,064. Oops. Let's fix that. 64 feet. Okay, because it's a positive. The Dow gains 10.24 points. So it's a positive 10.24. An oil drilling platform extends 320 feet below sea level. Okay, so again, if we're referring to below sea level, we would say negative 328 feet. And that's how we know whether a number will be positive or negative. A lot of it's going to depend on the context of the problem. What is it describing, okay? All right. So here it says find the additive inverse. That is the opposite. Okay, so when we're referring to opposites, like the opposite of negative 7 is a positive 7. The opposite of a positive 1/4 is a negative 1/4. A temperature rise of 40 degrees would be a temperature drop or fall of 40 degrees, okay? So now, it says a concept that will help us add and subtract real numbers is the idea of absolute value. The absolute value of a number is the distance between that number and 0 on the number line. It says the absolute value of 3 is written as 3. So I want you to notice here what we have. And I'm going to explain this to you in a couple of ways. So the absolute value of 3, how far is it from 0 to 3? If we were to count 1, 2, 3 spaces, right? I also want you to notice that the distance from 0 to negative 3, 1, 2, 3 spaces, okay? So the absolute value is always going to be a positive number. In general, I like to think as positive numbers as money that I owe. Mistake. Positive numbers as money that I have, and negative numbers as money that I owe. So when I think of the number negative 7, this just means I owe $7. When I think of the number positive 5, this means I have $5, okay? Now, with the absolute value, an easy way to think about the absolute value is don't worry about whether you have or you owe, worry how much, okay? So when I look at this problem here, this is the absolute value of negative 4.62. So the fact that that number is negative tells me that I owe $4.62. Because it's asking me to find the absolute value, I'm not so concerned about whether I have it or whether I owe it. I just want to know how much. Well, the amount is $4.62. Okay. Same thing in this problem. 3/7. I have 3/7 of a dollar. Okay. How much do I have? 3/7. Okay. 0/5. I have 0/5 parts of a dollar. Well, how much is 0/5? Well, that's actually just 0. Okay. So again, in these next two problems that I have here, I'm going to go back to that idea of a positive number being money that I have and a negative number being money that I owe. Okay. Well, both of these are positive. So if I have $14 and I have another $16, I have a total of 30. Okay. Now these are both negative. If I owe you $8 and you lend me 7 more, well, now I owe you a grand total of 15. Okay. So the next problem we've already talked about. We know how to add fractions because we did that in chapter 0. So remember, the first thing we need to do here is we need to find a common denominator between the numbers 3 and 7. Again, my recommendation, let's take a look at our chart. I'm going to look at the numbers 3 and 7. So here's my number 3, here's my number 7. The first number that they both have in common is the number 21. That tells me that's going to be my common denominator, right? So let's come back to our original problem right here. And we're going to put a 21 right here and a 21 right here. We're adding, so I'm going to put that plus. We multiplied 7 by 3, so we're going to multiply 7 by 2. It's going to give us a 14. We multiplied 7 by 3, so we're going to multiply 1 by 3. Now that we have a common denominator, we know our bottom number is going to be 21. And 14 plus 3 will just give me 17. I can't reduce that number, so I won't, okay? Now, the decimal problems, I usually say these are pretty much standard calculator type problems, right? So the first thing I'll do is I'll take my calculator, and I want to get negative 4.2 on there. So on my calculator here, I need to hit 4.2. I want it to be negative, so I'm going to hit that little plus minus sign, okay? Now we're going to add 3.94, but I want that 3.94 to be negative also, so I'm going to hit that negative. Then I'm going to hit equals. Now, before I even hit equals, I want us to think about this problem. I owe roughly, I come back here, oops, I owe roughly $4, right? I owe roughly another $4, so I should owe about $8, right? It might be a little bit less, a little bit more, but it should be about $8. So when I hit equals, I owe $8.14, right? So even though I'm using the calculator, I want to make sure that I have an idea of what answer I should be getting, right? Because a lot of times when we do work on the calculator, whatever number we get here, we take it as that's what the answer is, right? Because that's what the calculator gave us. But if I make a mistake and I forget to hit that little plus minus button so I can make that a negative $3.94, I'm going to get a different answer. So even before I use my calculator, I want to have an idea of what kind of number I should be getting, okay? So now, let's take a look at the next one here. Again, I'm going to walk us through this process. I owe $7. I borrow 2 more. Now I owe 9. I owe $9. I borrow another 5. Well, now I owe a total of 14. Okay. All right. So the next couple of problems, we're dealing with numbers that are different. They have different signs. So if you notice, we have a positive 8 and a negative 7. I have $8, but I owe you 7. And if I run into you in the hallway and you say, hey, give me the $7 that you owe me, and I pay you, I'm still left with $1, right? Okay. Let's try the next one here. We already know our answer in the bottom is going to be 15. Okay, so I'm going to think of this as a positive 2. So I have $2, but I owe you 8. Well, if I have $2 and I owe you 8, if I give you the $2, I still owe you 6. Okay. If I owe you $6, but I have one more and I give you that other dollar, now I only owe you 5. So again, I want you to think about this number. We know the answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to put my negative right here. All I'm going to do now is just reduce this fraction. We can divide them both by 5. That'll leave me with a 1. That'll leave me with a 3. And my answer is negative 1/3. People often ask, do I need to write the negative on the top? You can write it on the top. You can write it exactly in the middle. And if you really wanted to, you could actually put it on the bottom. Those all mean the same thing, okay? So where you put that negative is not really important. Just notice here, here, and here, the negative only appeared once, right? So I don't want to put it on the top and on the bottom. I'll put it with one of them, but not both. All right, so look, let's do the next one. Again, I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to try to be real careful. So 1.8, but that's negative, plus 1.4, stays positive, equals, plus 2.6, negative, negative 3, okay? Negative 3, there we go. Okay. Let's take a look at the next one here. So when I have a problem like this and I have a lot of different numbers and they all have different signs, one way I could do it, I can always just go left to right. Let's do this part first. So if I owe you 8 and I only have 3, well, I owe you 5. Okay. I'm just going to write the next part of it down right there, just this piece right here. I owe you 5, I borrow another 5. Well, ¿sabes qué? Or in English, you know what? Now I owe you 10. Okay. Now let's go ahead and put this part. I owe you 10. Excuse me, and I borrow another 2. Well, now I owe you 12. Okay? All right, I'm going to just put the next part. Plus 6. I owe you 12, but I only have 6. Well, once I pay you, I still owe you 6. Okay? And then finally, the plus 5. So if I owe you 6 and all I have left is, or I only have 5, at the end, I'm still going to owe you $1. Okay? All right. So the next problem here, again, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use my calculator for the first one. So let me clear that out. We're going to go 2.8 plus 1.3, but it's negative. I'm going to hit equals. And I'm coming up with 1.5. Right. All right. So for the next one, the first thing we need to do is we need to find the common denominator. Again, the chart to me is super helpful, right? I'm going to come back and look at my chart. Here's 4, here's 5. The first number they both have in common is the number 20. Okay, so we know 20 is going to be our common denominator. So the first thing I'll do here, I'll write a 20. I'll write a 20 here. Remember, we are now multiplying the bottom number by 4, and we got to do the top number by 4. And the bottom number here by 5, so we got to do the top number here by 5. Okay, so this number is negative because there's already a negative there. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 5, 15. But again, it's already negative. I don't want to forget that. Now, there's my common denominator. All I'm really doing is looking at the top part. I owe you $8. I borrow 15 more, so now I owe you 23. And that is 1.1.